as part of the Vietnam Festival of Creativity and Design, VFCD. We had one this morning. And our speaker today is Nguyễn Hữu Khôi, who's sitting here. And he works at VICAS. Well done, everyone. So he works at VICAS, which is the Vietnam National Institute of Culture and Art Studies. For the Brits among us, I would say it's probably the equivalent of the Arts Council. So VICAS promote and advise the government on artistic, creative initiatives. They also have like 850 research projects going on and support PhD students. They have 4 basic strands. They're also instrumental in the preservation and the spreading the word of the intangible cultural heritages as well. And again, FEH and VICAS now collaborate with each other, and we hope to do a series of events with them in the future. And so Khôi is also the founder of At Hanoi Capital, which is an editorial platform that promotes Hanoi tourism to tourists and visitors who come to Hanoi and Vietnam. And he's also actually helped promote many, many businesses, particularly in the hospitality industry, to foreign visitors as well. So, and I think he's got something like 100,000 followers. I think it's something like 100,000 followers on his Instagram page. So he does a lot of good. And this talk is on the 3 C's, and it sort of came about hand in hand with a series of online coffee mornings that me and Khôi have been doing for the American Embassy, in partnership with FEH and VICAS. So the American Embassy asked us whether we could do some morning talks for their staff who were in quarantine. And we chose the topic of coffee and culture. So, and over the weeks, Khoi's talk has basically progressed, and I've learnt more. And we've got through many, many, many cups of Noda and many, many tubs of Ongta condensed milk. And I've learnt that Khoi loves it really, really sweet and very, very strong. Anyway, so that's that. Yeah. Okay. So Khoi, as you can see, is a very young person here. He is very young, much younger than me. He was born in Hanoi and is passionate about this city, for the current day culture, but also the past culture. And he's very interested in combining the modern and the traditional. He really respects the former glory as well. And so this is a very light-hearted talk, okay? Not in great detail. He's not a coffee expert. He doesn't own a cafe. He's interested in how coffee and the life that surrounds the cafes today impacts on Hanoi society and how it's been changed dramatically by the young people today as well, okay? And he also comes with a perspective, not just as an Hanoian, but also an international person, because he studied and lived abroad for quite a while as well, so he can see the benefits of both, okay? The talk is in English, so I know there's many Vietnamese people here. The talk is in English. Everything is in English, including the quiz. And Q&A needs to be in English as well, so please don't ask your question in Vietnamese. Please ask it in English. And partly because Khôi, again, is bridging the international and Vietnamese community, so he wants to get everyone together as a big happy family, speaking English, okay? So it's all in English. And this is in the style of a casual storytelling way of a group of friends in a cafe talking about the importance of coffee, okay? Very simple. At the end of the talk, so it'll be supported by a PowerPoint. Then when he's finished the presentation, there'll be a chance for Q&A. And that will be, I'll explain a little bit about that later, but that's for everybody to join in, not just questions directed to Khôi, okay? Then there'll be a very short break where you can order more tea, coffee, have a toilet break, and then we end with this fab quiz, which is such a great thing. And there'll be more instruction about the quiz, and you have to listen very carefully, okay? So anyway, with no further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Khôi.
So thank you, Stella, for the introduction, and thank you, everybody, for being here today in Vietnam's capital, Hanoi. 21 years ago, this city received the title, the City for Peace by UNESCO, recognizing its contribution to peace, culture, care for the young generation. I'm going to start again. So 21 years ago, this city, the City for Peace by UNESCO, thanks to its contribution to peace, culture, and care for the young generation. So to the people of Hanoi at that time, it was a great news. To the city of Hanoi, a big achievement, a very important one. To me, I was 3 years old. I had no idea what it meant. But today, I've grown up. I understood more about Hanoi and culture and tourism. And after years of traveling to different countries, making friends with people from different cultures, and coming back here, I've come to realize that Hanoi to me is not just home, not just a Vietnamese city, but a very special capital city in the world. The things I grew up with became tourist attractions. The hidden charms became iconic symbols. And I started seeing why more and more people travel across the globe to come here just to see our backyards. I'm a local Hanoian. I was born and raised here, and my identity or stories really stick to the identity of this city. And today, I gotta say this, I do have a very special feeling for my hometown. Of course, Hanoi's not perfect, I know. And I know there could be a lot of difficulties and stress living here for you, foreign people, for me too. The chaos, the traffic, the mess, sometimes it's overwhelming, it's a bit too much sometimes. And if there's one thing I cannot stand in my own city, it is the traffic, because I have OCD. But every time I think of that, I imagine how difficult it must be for some of the foreign people who come here for the first time. When I was a little kid, we didn't have many tourists, we didn't have many foreign people here, not many Western people. In the early 2000s, there were only about 2 million international tourists. So I remember one day after school, my mom picked me up from school, and sitting at the back of her bike, I saw a couple of Western tourists on the street. And I just got so excited, and just got so curious, and I kept thinking, what's so special about Hanoi? Why did they choose to visit this place? Would they love it? Would they come back? Would they bring their friends? So that thought did not just follow me on the way home that day, it followed me on my journey until today. And above all, I'm the happiest person to see all the changes and the achievements that this city has made over the last couple of years. From that time, we only had 2 million tourists. In last year, 2019, just in Hanoi, 7 million international tourists. And in Vietnam, the number went up 18 million foreign tourists. So from 2 million to 18 million, that was a big move. And speaking of 2019, it was a big year for us to putting Hanoi and Vietnam on the world's map. Vietnam signed EVFTA, the Trump-Kim summit in Hanoi, the agreement to host the F1, all that thing. And it's on that same year that on the 30th of October, Hanoi officially became the first Vietnamese city to join UNESCO's Creative City Network. 20 years ago, it was a city for peace, today also a creative city in the category of design. Another important UNESCO title. And Hanoi is aiming to put people, culture, and creativity into its core, into the center of the city's sustainable development. And being a creative city, it was also done and achieved thanks to Hanoi's rich culture, tradition, and history. The city has 1,350 handicraft villages. It's like the only capital city in the world with that many villages. And also a great number of museums, a fast-growing community of designers, artists, creative people, and a strong culture industry that is emerging. And of course, a variety of culture hubs, creative space showcasing arts, culture, architecture, film, and music, and design in general. And we start seeing everywhere the young people, they're just showing creativity across the whole city. So to support that title, in this year's festival, Hanoi is given the concept and the theme of creativity and culture. And by the way, Vietnam Festival is organized in 3 capitals of Vietnam, which is Hanoi, our capital city of culture, Hue, the capital, the ancient capital of heritage, and Ho Chi Minh City, the capital of innovation. So back to where we are, the capital of Vietnam, Hanoi. In our event today, in our talk today, culture, the capital of culture. And I know culture could be a very broad topic because, especially in a dynamic city like Hanoi, there's so many things going on here. And sometimes I think it's just your own perception of the city. There's no right or wrong answer when you try to define what exactly Hanoi's culture is about. People could view it in so many different ways, good or bad. up or down, doesn't really matter. There's so many things going on here. So you may or you may not like Hanoi, but once you love it, it doesn't let you go, right? So in my answer, Hanoi's culture is a beautiful mixture of contrast that coexist at the same time. This contrast, that contrast, and the extreme, they interact, they oppose each other at the same time. There's always a fine balance between them, a fine balance that form and shape this city. Like the balance of old and new, traditional and modern, east and west. It is a city where you have all those traditional business from ages ago still existing at places like the Old Quarter. They located right next to them, you have all those fancy, expensive restaurants and hotels. People have a glass of red wine in a very fancy restaurant. After that, go for a cup of tea on the side of the street, sitting on those tiny chairs. And you have the historical Hoan Kiem Lake, which is the old historical city center, full of tradition, full of history. Then you go to Westlake, a huge lake surrounded by a multicultural, diverse community of people from different nationalities, foreign community expats. So it's just a blend of traditional and modern and being so international at the same time. The architecture as well, a blend of old and new, a blend of French and Vietnamese architecture, from those tiny houses, the historical size, to all the skyscrapers growing non-stop. Hanoi really shows a blend of old and new, east and west, traditional and modern. And speaking of the contrast of this city's identity, on that same axis, it also shows a balance of being a city that is so chaotic, so noisy, at the same time could be very elegant and calm and poetic. I know a lot of people, when they come to my city, they say, oh, your city is so crazy. Hanoi is a crazy city, haha. And I don't mind. It's not wrong in a way. And it's not wrong. It is a crazy city at some points. But may I also remind that it's also very elegant, very classical at the same time. After all, it's the capital of Vietnam, a 1,000-year-old capital of culture, education, art, home to the nation's first national university. So of course, it is a very elegant city. Walking in the neighborhood, you start seeing the local kids playing the piano from the windows, classical music. You start seeing the Vietnamese artists drawing on the street. Very poetic, very elegant. And you start getting a vibe of a city that is classical. You get the vibe of an European city at the same time, somehow. So all that things form Hanoi's identity, that I say, of a vibrant, but so quiet at the same time. So noisy, but so calm. So Hanoi's culture is just a mixture of the contrast of the extremes that interact with each other at the same time. And I think it's just like what the French-American author, Claude Tarapon, I'm sorry if I mispronounce his name, but he says in his book, The Culture Code, that everything we experience in life lies somewhere on an axis between the two extremes. So the tension between this extreme and the opposing one define culture. And I believe that's what Hanoi is about, the tension between this extreme and the opposing one define culture. The city's code, the culture code, is an organized chaos. The culture tension of layers of history, tradition, culture, layer of 8 million people, layer of different families packed within very tight area of the Old Quarter, sharing very small common space. Interestingly, at the end of the day, everybody is fine. Everybody minds their own business. Because there's always that invisible force that harmonizes and balances the whole city. Even the traffic is followed by that rule. It's chaotic. It does not seem to follow any order. At the end of the day, it flows and works on naturally. Everybody gets back to their home. And that's why Hanoi is so special. There's nowhere else in the world like this city. It's so unique. A lot of things can only be found here. Even within Vietnam, there's nowhere like Hanoi. So I'd like to share a little bit how I got to fall in love with my own city. That much is because I lived overseas for a few years, not long ago. I did live overseas for a few years. So when I came back here, I got the chance to view my own hometown with a more foreign perspective, or more open mind. So I think that the first step to love Hanoi is to love the simple little things first, because they are the core, they are what define Hanoi's culture and identity, not the tourist attractions, the simple things. And in fact, Hanoi is actually not a city full of tourist attractions. We do have some tourist attractions, and they're all amazing. But it's not a city where the tourists come and expect to spend the whole week exploring different huge buildings without getting bored. No, we don't have that. We don't have the Eiffel Tower, the Big Ben. We don't have the Great Wall of China or the Angkor Wat. No, no. People come here to feel that soul and that identity of an authentic Vietnam. From the little things on the street, the simple little things that define Hanoi. The plastic table and chairs, the cup of coffee, the windows, the doors, the electricity wires, the people, the cars, the vendors, the helmets, all those things form Hanoi's amazing identity. So I think not necessarily a city for tourists, but for real travelers, because tourists come to see what they want to see. Travelers, they come to see what they don't already know, then be a part of it, and that's why they choose Hanoi. So for the real travelers out there, here we are. The best way to discover Hanoi is walking. Walk randomly, walk non-stop, walk without a map. I gotta say, one of the best cities in the world to get lost. You will never know what you'll find. There will always be something fascinating, something amazing waiting for you behind those doors, those windows, people's stuff on the pavement that you cannot walk, but still, discover it. It's so vibrant. And I love walking in my own city, that's why. You will always discover something new every single day. I love walking here, taking a picture of every corner I like. Upload on social media, starting Hanoi Capsule. That's another way for me to love the city even more. And when walking here, there's this one thing I noticed, that on the main street, everybody ground floor here is a coffee shop. So looking at that map of Hanoi once again, it is the one thing that is so simple, so familiar, yet one of the most and biggest cultures, the coffee culture. And that's our second C of today, coffee. Coffee, coffee, coffee. People love coffee, people drink coffee every day. People drink coffee like water here. And certainly the coffee industry plays a very, very essential role for our economy too, culturally, and plays a big role for economy too. For those who don't know yet, Vietnam is the second biggest coffee exporter and producer in the world, only after Brazil. With the average value of coffee export accounts for $3 billion per year. And of course, in a nation, in the capital city of a nation that is so in love with coffee. Nothing says Hanoi like the coffee shops here. People just spend different times at coffee shop every day, a lot of time. I love coffee shop here. I love going there for a good chill, good laugh with my friends. I love having a good time in coffee shop over a cup of coffee, of course. To clarify, a coffee shop in Hanoi is a place where you come to drink coffee. It's not Amsterdam, it's Hanoi. So coffee is very important for us. And it totally shows what Hanoi's culture is all about, because it merged the modern lifestyle in the past. It is a story of old and new, a story of war, history, a story of East meets West, exactly what Hanoi is. Because coffee it was so huge in Vietnam, it was first brought here by the French during 19th century. In fact, in 1857, the French brought the first coffee beans here and they start planting at different parts of the country. They also introduced the coffee filter, the coffee press, which are the hot water, where the hot water drips through to make the coffee. And by the way, this is still the most common method that the Vietnamese people use to make our coffee today. Full of history, right? The coffee culture. So for many Hanoian people, for us, most of us, drinking coffee has become a lifestyle, a very normal habit daily. People love to sit around, people love to spend a lot of time, people love to spend the whole day in a coffee shop. A lot of people make coffee shop like their home here. I know it sounds crazy, but it's become such a huge culture habit. In many countries around the world, coffee is mostly used during the day as a tool to keep you awake. In Hanoi, the locals can be found at different coffee shops at any time of the day, even after midnight. So part of the reason why this culture has become so huge is because, first of all, the taste can be addictive. And I know I am a Vietnamese person saying this, but Vietnamese coffee is good. You might not like it at the first try, but once you live here long enough, once you drink enough of it, once you're used to it, you cannot quit. Second reason is because the price for a cup of coffee is generally very cheap. And you can sit as long as you want in a coffee shop here. Nobody's gonna kick you out, don't worry. The third reason is because Hanoi is a big city, home to 8 million people, but we don't have a lot of public place. And I'm sure it's a natural habit that as human beings, sometimes we just want to get outdoor, spend time on our own. People watch, observe the street, the sky, enjoy the air. Just want to get outdoor, but we don't have a lot of huge parks to do that for the locals here. So people choose coffee shops, and the coffee shops become a public place with that function in this city. And it's just like Alfred Polker, he says a cafe is a perfect place for those who need company to be alone. Today, there's nothing more iconic than the picture of the local Hanoian people sitting on those tiny chairs and sipping the famous coffee with condensed milk. And the way we drink coffee here is very different too, compared to your cultures, very different here. Unlike Italian espresso, let's say, or American coffee on the go. Vietnamese coffee culture in general, or Hanoian coffee culture in particular, is all about relaxing, thinking, slowly enjoying things. No worries, just enjoy. The culture here does not focus on takeaway coffee, but people rather love to sit down, enjoy the taste, the music, the vibes, the decorations, the company in the conversation, enjoy every simple little things. Even the coffee itself, the way we make it, shows a slow way of enjoying things. The Vietnamese coffee, where the hot water drips through, it takes so long to make a cup of Vietnamese coffee. Everything shows a laid-back lifestyle that many people would have their first impression when they come to this city for the first time. A laid-back coffee culture is so different to any coffee culture in the world. The generations and people they have different types of coffee, and they have different ways to enjoy their cup of coffee as well. For the older, more traditional generation, they are very picky with the taste. They only drink the good coffee. You know, a good coffee shop is when you have your cup of coffee in the morning, where the owner's having breakfast next to you. And the older generation, they look for a place that looks simple, that's been around for ages in their life. Only the good coffee, that's all matters. No need for social media check-in, just coffee. For the young generation, it's slightly different. And I'm not trying to assume that all of us do this, but sometimes the majority is not just about the taste, it's also about how many likes you get on social media from those pretty corners of Instagrammable coffee shops. They look for places that look creative, artistic, coffee shops where they come in big groups, feel convenient, and spend a lot of time, and of course take a lot of nice pictures, like this place downstairs. And traditionally, our coffee culture is a place for a cup of coffee, for a relax. Today it's come to serve different groups of people for different purposes. Purposes like networking, reading, working, socializing, social media check-in, and many, many other activities, which is why what I'm trying to say at this point is today, time change and all coffee culture does not necessarily mean just being laid back or lazy anymore. Hanoi, after all, is a big city, the capital of Vietnam, a city that is always moving forward. So in a city like this, of course, people have to get busy to make their business happen. Vietnam, at the same time, witnessing a crazy booming startup. So the young people, they're looking for a place, a coffee shop, where they can get busy, where they can have their business meetings without renting an office. So it's time for a new model of a coffee culture that support this modern population need, at the same time still support the culture identity of Hanoi. Before we talk about that new concept and that new culture, remember this. Remember, this 1,000-year-old capsule is where foreign retail and fast food chains still struggle to fit in. But because of that, Hanoi has an unique spirit that forces people to push creativity to a much higher level. It is also a city where the creative community is growing so fast, a city of a very young population. The youth labor rate accounts for 52.7%. And so many young people, they just want to open the business here. With all that strength, combined with a rich coffee culture, here comes the playground for the young people to spread their new idea. And here comes our third C of today, creativity. Not long ago in Vietnam, we came up with a new term, culture and creative hubs, meaning space for the designers, artists, creative people meet, exchange ideas, and form a community. There could be an art space, a gallery, exhibition, showroom, workshop, discussion. There could be a lot of things, but they share the same common purpose. Bring people closer to art and culture. Bring the community closer and contribute to the nation's creative economy. As a creative city by UNESCO, Hanoi now has nearly about 100 creative hubs, leading the nation, 100 hubs. And because many of the hubs have free entrance, open to the public, they serve coffee as a way to earn income. So in a way, the creative hubs can also be viewed as a coffee shop. And that's the model of the new creative coffee shop that I'm sharing today. A creative coffee shop is growing at great speed around the whole city. And of course, they are a coffee shop, but that's a coffee shop with a place for arts. There could be a coffee shop where you have an art gallery, exhibition, where people enjoy art. It's a coffee shop where they can also have a place for an events room, live music events, talk show, workshop, discussion. Here we are, in a coffee shop. Could also be a coffee shop with a function being a co-working space where business happens, where people meet and exchange ideas, especially the creative young people. They go to coffee shops, they make friends, they network, and they build things together to support Hanoi's identity. So the models of coffee shops here, of the creative coffee shops, they can be minor and slight changes and difference between the shops. But in general, they all share the same vision of bringing people closer together and promote art and culture activities. A place like Manzi, for example, is an art cafe. They usually host art talks, discussion, film nights. And Manzi is located in a very pretty colonial villa in a French Hanoian old quarter neighborhood. For art lovers, it's a great place for you to come, enjoy and explore Vietnamese contemporary art while sipping your cup of coffee. And the idea of Manzi is just like many other creative hubs in Hanoi. Start from a small team's dream, and it's where the owners have learned from their practical experience. The thing about Manzi is that a lot of their art talks and discussion and culture shows here focus on the difficulties and challenges that Vietnamese society is facing, the problems that the young Vietnamese people are facing. So if you love art and if you care about that, it's a great place for you to come and understand more of us. And Manzi, of course, they change their gallery theme quite often, that every time you come back, you get a different vibe. It's very special. Bluebird's Nest is another model in this category, a very young coffee shop. It's a book cafe focusing on organizing culture events and supporting small startups and small business and small organizations. And I just have a huge respect for this concept because what they normally do is they support a lot of small organizations by providing free venues for the talks and discussion, as long as those organizations share the same mission of building a better community for Hanoi. They bring people closer, people share ideas, how to make Hanoi a better place. The young people, the bright future of this nation, that is so important. The second reason is because this coffee shop, they support reading and education, because of course it's a book coffee shop. But it's very important because in the time of social media these days, it's very important that they promote reading activities. So all of those non-profits and support the community orientation form a very civilized, very educational of the young community in Hanoi. It's located in a very quiet alley, right in the middle of the city. And I think it's just so important. And I think it's exactly what this city needs to be known about. And I need more people to know about places like this, where the young make ideas happen and change the city. The creative coffee shops, the reason why I'm sharing this model today is because in this festival today, because I believe They are the core important parts that support the identity of Hanoi as a creative city by UNESCO. Because they start from a core coffee culture, then provide the needs for the modern populations. They also show how creative the coffee owners here are. Because for every demand or problem that the society has, these hubs provide their needs, putting that in the form of a coffee culture, then become the answer. Hanoi Social Club, the answer for the expat community living in Hanoi. Those who love to socialize, meet the world, find their culture back home. You walk in a very nice little alley of the Old Quarter, you find an elegant colonial villa, 20th century colonial villa, French building. You step inside, you start seeing the typical Hanoian floor tiles, the green windows, the yellow walls. Everything shows the classic Hanoi back in the days, 70, 80 years ago. At the same time, things can be very westernized too, from the decorations, the music, the food, the people there. This place is perfect contrast, and it's a perfect example of what Hanoi is all about, that we talked about earlier, East meets West. It's just so French, so Vietnamese, so Hanoian, so westernized at the same time. And looking from a foreign perspective, this is a good place because it could make you feel like home, when clearly you're still on a foreign land. The vibes, the decorations make you feel like home. And also the wide range of international activities here show that it's a great chance for you to bring your culture back home, introduce us here in the middle of Hanoi. That's important for me too. Culture exchange, get to know each other. Then speaking of another very effective function that the creative coffee shops do today, working space, networking, co-working space, business happen. The creative people meet and work and make it happen in this city. So culturally, people love working in a coffee shop in Hanoi. Part of the reasons, like I have explained, because of the lack of a public place. Culturally, people love working in a coffee shop here. Personally, I prefer working at home or in the office. But every time we need to have a team meeting or we need to brainstorm an idea, we need a place where we can find inspiration, where everybody can easily meet up over a cup of coffee. So my favorite coffee shop in Hanoi to work is this place. Another culture hub for creative people. It's a coffee shop, of course, but there's also a boutique shop, art place, showcasing the value of using materials that is so local, so green, so sustainable, from the Vietnamese designers. Once again, we see the power of the young people here. The use of very green and sustainable materials. Everything shows the authenticity of Vietnamese design in modern time. So it's not just a place where you come for coffee, it's where you see that beauty. It's a cultural hub for those who love creativity, those who love to have their team meetings, those who love to work with their laptop in an open environment. The whole thing shows a very simple, elegant, minimalism and simplicity design at the same time. So a lot of young people, they love places like this. And the creative coffee shops, and they're just everywhere. They're growing everywhere in the city now. Walking across this city, it's impossible to walk across this city without bumping into different models, different concepts of coffee shops. I haven't seen any city like this in the world. Different models of coffee shops, so many different styles for different purposes. The young people, they just put so much energy, time, effort, and idea into building a new concept within Hanoi society when it comes to a cup of coffee. And you may have noticed that there are very few coffee chains in Hanoi too. Once again, that's the reason that keeps Hanoi more authentic. That's why more people come to visit this place and feel, oh, I love Hanoi. But then there's this one coffee chain that comes from this city. Once again, the city of art and culture and creativity. The coffee chain that comes from Hanoi, now it receives international attention. People love it. And I know it's a coffee chain, and it's everywhere. The reason why I'm sharing this is because it's a great example of combining Hanoi's rich history and culture with a touch of creativity and design to transform a normal model of coffee shop into something, a concept that is so unique, that blends old and new, east and west, blends traditional and modern. The founder of COLAB was a singer. She was a singer, and she had a big love for art and vintage decoration. So she came up with the idea where people can come for a coffee and feel a part of their childhood. Back in the day, she wouldn't imagine COLAB would be so huge today, favored by both locals and foreign people. Even people outside of Vietnam too, like in South Korea, it's very famous. And once again, old and new. It's a great modern business model, very successful. Great marketing strategy, branding strategy, but the most important factor, the Vietnamese spirit remains. And of course, that'd be crazy of me to share all the coffee shops in Hanoi today. We don't have time for that. I don't want to bore you to death. And I don't know all of them, of course. But they show how creative the coffee owners, how creative the young people today are. One same common thing for all of the new coffee shops is that they are owned by very young people. And they use a lot of very sustainable materials. That is good for the environment. And this shows a bright future of this city. In general, they share the same functions. They promote art, creativity. They bring people closer. No matter what your nationality is, they bring us closer today. They also provide working space for the creative people, space for the young to make their ideas happen, create new jobs, new needs for the society, contribute to the economy. And I'm sure it's a very good way to approach for creative and culture tourism after this pandemic. Because when the tourists come here, they'd love to try Vietnamese coffee. Now they have a lot of options to try Vietnamese coffee, at the same time understanding more about Hanoi's culture, history, and creativity. Hanoi today. Hanoi today, the creative city by UNESCO in the category of design. And design, particularly in the creation of culture hubs, creative space, creative coffee shops, received lots of attention from the public in the last few years. 2018, the creative industries of Hanoi contribute about $1.5 billion to the city's economy. Regarding the coffee shops, no longer just a place for chill out, no longer just a place for relax or laid back. They start being seen as a place where the real business happen, where ideas happen, where we get busy and productive, where the young people pursue their dream, a dream for Vietnam. All happen from a coffee shop. Speaking of creativity, all the new terms like design, culture, creative hubs are now being seen as contemporary aspects. Remember, Hanoi has long had an evolution of history of creativity through its development. The architecture, for example, with influence from all the cultures, transformed into a very unique, beautiful appearance that can only be seen and found in Hanoi. They are a real spirit, they are the real soul of this place that cannot be found anywhere else. Places like the Opera House, Thăng Long Citadel, Nhật Tân Bridge, all those buildings, to smaller scale architecture design, like those coffee shops, delightful coffee shops housed in elegant French villas. The coffee itself is a product of creativity in this city. And it may have been introduced to us by the French, but we quickly renovate and transform into a culture that is so different to anything that can be found in Europe. The Vietnamese people, they are certainly not afraid to experiment with coffee either. They came up with coffee with condensed milk, egg coffee, coconut coffee, all show creativity through every simple little thing. And it's interesting why the coffee culture is such a huge culture for us here, is because to illustrate, to make it easier to understand. If you go to Japan, for example, you got to explore the tea culture to understand the country better. A place like the UK, when guys want to meet up, they meet up over in a pub, over a pint of beer. In here, a coffee shop. The most common destination for almost everybody to meet with their friends, with their business partners. And we talked about Hanoi's culture, coffee, and creativity. That's my city today, thanks to Hanoi's culture. The city is becoming more popular as a place to visit, to come, live, and work for people around the world. Thanks to Hanoi's coffee, we're given a chance to express ourselves, communicate, feel connected. That's where culture breathes and lives. That's where we find inspiration. And I believe the best version of this city is when all of those aspects are harmonized and linked by a touch of design and creativity. At the last part of my talk, I'd like to share you my favorite picture that I took a few years ago. I took it. I love it. And don't worry, I'm not trying to show up. I just want to share it because I want to ask if anybody know where this place is. It'd be more fun if someone who's not from Hanoi answered this. Can anyone have a guess? What is the name of this street? Can you see it? Hang Bai? Hang Gai? Nice try. No. Any other guess? Right, Vietnamese people then. Can anyone?
Is the number the key?
Yes, yes. Yes. It's that street right below us. A few years ago, like 3 years ago, I don't remember. But in fact, that wall, that door, is the exact building where we are today. Before it became a coffee shop. See the difference? And I get it, some may think, why not keep it like that? Why not keep the natural beauty that makes Hanoi more authentic? Why have to make a coffee shop? I've heard that before. I'm not the owner of this place, don't worry. But looking at the bright side, this new coffee shop as one of the most popular coffee shops in Hanoi today has transformed the city's identity from an old, abandoned building that is not used in the middle of the city into something that is so functional, so artistic, so creative, full of cultures, full of beauty, providing space for young people to drink coffee, to hang out, to have fun, create new needs, contribute to the economy. I do a lot of good things. Looking at the brighter side, it gives us a chance to be here together all day. Today, as part of the festival, where we are today, it gives us a chance to do it where I can share my thoughts of my own city to everybody, and I think that's so important. That's what the coffee shops do here, don't they? Cultural exchange, get to know each other, feel connected. Today, we lost a little bit of joy and fun this year in the field of tourism because of the pandemic that stopped many people from traveling to this nation, this city. But today, as part of the festival, I got a chance to be here, see all of you, and I feel lucky. Because I'm still that same kid always wondering if people love Hanoi, if people want to come back here, if people bring their friends next time. I care about promoting the picture, the identity of my city to people, to everybody, to the world. So I love seeing people love Hanoi. And today I just want to share that as a Hanoi born and raised, the story of myself is like the story of this city, this exact city. A story about always moving forward, making the changes, and seeing the new achievements. From 2 million tourists to 7 million, to 18 million. From that kid who saw Western tourists for the first time until the day I'm standing here today. We've come to reach those important steps to call this place home. And I think today we can finally say to the world that this is a city for peace. This is a city of design. This is the capital of culture, coffee, and creativity. This is my city. This is also your home. This is Hanoi, and this is the capital city of Vietnam. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Khôi, Geoffrey. It's a lovely, lovely talk, and I'm amazed by that. I mean, that's just quite stunning. And I hope that more, I'm sure all of us would agree that if more of the lovely old villas can be restored lovingly like this, then it will just be amazing, and it make it even more amazing. Anyway, now's a short Q&A, so we can do it. You can ask a question to Khoi. It can be the audience asking the audience. It can be a statement. It can be a comment, anything about Hanoi, culture, creativity, etc. It can be like if there's some other expat friends here from various different societies and cultures. So if the Vietnamese society want to ask what the equivalent is in their capital cities, please feel free. As a Brit coming from London, London has, Alice, you correct me if I'm wrong, London doesn't have anything like Hanoi has. You may have one or two creative cafes, but I don't think you would sit there all day nursing one cup of coffee. I think you'll be soon asked to leave the room or buy another one or two cups of coffee. And I think, I don't know, you might even have to pay for internet. I've no idea. But, and certainly from my point of view, I've lived here a long time, I'm absolutely astounded by how many young people can just create a business from nothing. I still don't understand it and make a huge success of it. I don't understand it. We can't do that to the same extent in Britain, for example. So if if people want to ask a question, please feel free. Oh, yes. We don't have a mic for you though, so shout.
Would you please speak for a minute or two about tea and how that fits into culture and trends and...
Anybody who'd like to do this? Anyone in the audience? So after my talk, I'm not the center of the talk anymore. It's becoming an open discussion for everybody as friends today. So if someone can answer this, please feel free. If no, I will say something that I know. Yeah. If I know something, I answer it. If I don't know, I ask someone else to answer it. Yes. Anyone? Right. In terms of tea, it's I'm not a tea expert, but when it comes to tea, it's more like a thing that you drink at home, and you offer to guests when they come to visit you at the home. And some people, they drink tea on the side of the street too. Yeah, like from those small stalls, like those iced tea and stuff like that. But it's not a popular culture that you sit for long, like a coffee culture here. Yes, but tea, I know tea is very common too. Yes, that's all I know.
I think lemon tea is very popular. Lemon tea, because you've got a very famous singer that's written a song about lemon tea, sitting on the corner, drinking lemon tea. So I think Khoi's right.
Or you want to talk about bubble tea? That's very common too. Yes.
Eva?
Thank you. Yes. Right.
I will understand my grandma now better because I have never seen this. I have never heard this. So my question to you is, how do you work on not only building a new culture, but how do you work on capturing the young?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I think that's a very good question. First of all, the reason why the traditional culture is not very popular for young people, once again, of course, this is still from my own perspective, is because our society, with a very young population, we are growing at great speed, globalization. So we're moving forwards, and mentally, a lot of us think that subconsciously, we think that to move forward, to get to know and understand what's happening in the world, we need to understand the world as well. So a lot of the trends and the models that come from overseas, that every young people or person around the world do, will be adapt quickly here, because we want to be like them. We want to chase, we want to be as quick as them. So they spend a lot of time exploring the new cultures. And another reason is because, once again, as young people, naturally, we put more effort into something that attracts us more. So it's a shame that many people here, they don't feel fascinated and got interested enough in the traditional culture because of the many reasons. It could be because of the lack of education. It could be a lack of promotion from the older generation or from school. And by themselves as well, they don't feel that it's not interesting for me. It's so hard to understand. So it's a bit sad, but if it happens, I think it can be understandable. It's just because that's the natural way that the young people do and think. But we look forward to have them understand. Myself as well. I'm not going to lie. I don't know everything about the traditional culture here. But from those places, from these creative models, from these culture hubs, it's actually provide a great chance for young people to come and understand more, because they are all contemporary, but they show a lot about history, and they show concepts about combining traditional with the modern technique and concepts, and that could be more interesting and fascinating, rather than just putting them in books, and the young people cannot understand. So yeah, that's what I can say. Yeah.
Any other comments? Mary Jane.
Could you say a little about the history of egg coffee?
Right. Egg coffee was found in 1945 or 4, around that time, by a man called 6. Sorry, thank you very much. 46, by a man called Mr. Zhang. And actually, we're gonna do a quiz about this as well. So I don't want to share a lot of information about it, but it is a question on the quiz. But I can say that. I can say briefly first, and then after that, in the quiz time, which we use this answer, we promise we will explain more to that same question.
Yeah, because in the quiz, there's 10 questions, and
Yes.
at the end of every answer, Chang will explain a little bit about
But the reason why the inventor came up with that idea of using egg is because that time in Vietnam, there was a lack of fresh milk, very rare, very expensive. So he came up with using egg and condensed milk.
and it's now very popular.
Yes, please.
During the presentation, I just saw that you present a lot of new coffee right now, but I haven't heard from you about the street of coffee, like Nguyễn Hữu Khôi or
Okay.
something like a very common coffee on the street.
Right.
Like I know that there's many good old fashioned and also really old coffee
Yep.
in Hanoi, like Nghệ, like Linh in Hantown, something else in like everywhere around the old quarter is not only like something very new, something
Yes.
like you just a little bit touch of the like creativity and design
Right.
to make old building to new patients and for the young people to come in. But something like we can see like in Hanoi we call that the street coffee, such as aha, kappa, and something like that. And when you want,
Yes.
everywhere you can find the street coffee. I want to know more.
Sure. Thank you very much. I think that's very important too. The reason I didn't include in the presentation was because we were focusing on the more new modern, which is represents the contemporary arts and creativity that fits the theme of the festival today. But I do believe it's very important for us to mention about the core culture, the core models that make Hanoi Hanoi. So thanks to that question, I will talk about it a bit. that yes, in Hanoi we do have a lot of streets that are dedicated only for coffee shops. Like Nguyễn Hữu Khôi Street, go there, walk along this whole street, you only find coffee shops. And that's where some of the first very traditional models of coffee shops in Hanoi come from. And it's that model where I introduced earlier about the way the older generation enjoy their cup of coffee. It's the traditional model that looks simple, that have very small, tiny tables and chairs. And a lot of the most famous coffee shops, the very first from the days, come from that street. Giang Coffee, where you have the egg coffee, is on that street, Nguyễn Hữu Khôi too. Nguyễn Hữu Khôi. Yes, it's like coffee street in Hanoi. And you also have some more streets that are quite similar. You have a place like Việt Văn, which is once again a street full of old coffee shops, and you see a lot of men. You see a lot of men during the break time in the morning or lunchtime sitting at coffee shops there. And once again, they are all very old and simple looking coffee shops. And for young people, sometimes we go there too. But it will not be something that is so familiar to see on social media, because the new models these days, the young, they love to come to the new models to take photos more than those shops. And it depends on the demographic as well. The older generation, they would go to those places more. And yes, that part of the coffee culture is very important too, because it's like the lifeblood, and it's like where coffee was born. So check it out if you have time. Yes.
I just want to add, just a problem in my mind, like if you go to everywhere, like even new coffee, you can see in the menu, like it always have a Vietnamese coffee and espresso. It's so different, but you cannot find anywhere without Vietnamese coffee. So I think that this one is very taste special
Yes.
in Hanoi and in Vietnam.
Yes.
That you have everywhere is coffee shop without. I know
So.
that they even in Starbucks, I think they still have some Vietnamese coffee.
Awesome.
And also, in the combination between Vietnamese and espresso, you can find in Blackbird they have espresso. It's very interesting. Have to try it.
Yeah.
I think that it's not only about the idea of the creativity and design just for the location, but also inside the menu they create a new
Yes.
drink.
Yes. There's a thing called third wave cafe today. Yeah, that they do that. And of course, when you speak about different models of coffee shops and different ways that we drink coffee in this place, there's so many of them. Of course, yeah, it takes the whole day to talk about them. But they're all fascinating and interesting to see. Yeah, very different, very variety of options to choose. That's fine. Yeah, we can have a few more. Yeah.
If anyone's got any more questions, if not, we will take a short break and you can order more coffee or tea or a juice and have a comfort break. And then we'll reconvene for the quiz. And we'd like everyone to come back for the quiz. And please, you need to really listen carefully to the quiz, because it's very clever. It's online, and we will put people in teams, and it's quite technical.
And it's a chance to bring us together
Yes.
and get to know more about Hanoi
Yes.
and Vietnam.
And people can chat while you're having your little break. So 10-minute break, everybody. And don't forget that the winning team of the quiz will get